I had really bad social anxiety. It started at a really young age. I was more prepared to go be part of the world and feel like I was going to die at Armageddon than to continue dealing with the anxiety that I had as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. I have come to the realization that that fear was triggered by the fact that it was a false teaching, and subconsciously I knew just a couple people in the congregation that I cared very deeply about, and I wanted to not just disappear on them, basically.
Mhm.
So I wrote them letters. They actually gave those letters to the elders.
This is Seeds of Awakening. Thanks so much for watching. I'm the host of my channel. If this is your first time checking out my channel, thanks so much for being here. If you're a returning visitor, thanks so much for watching. I feature stories from ex-JWs and others who had spiritual awakenings. And today's guest had severe mental health issues related to being involved with Jehovah's Witnesses. And then when she began to question the organization, well, that led to some serious ramifications. And the question is, who do you talk to or who do you turn to if you're starting to have questions about your faith? She's going to share her thoughts in this interview. But first, make sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. If you do nothing else, just hit the thumbs up. Maybe you want to share this with someone who may find it interesting. The best thing you can do, though, is just smash the like, smash the thumbs up. That's a great way to pay it forward. All right, so our guest today, her name is Andi Musacchia. She had experience with mental health issues. She was had severe anxiety that was all associated with her being involved in Jehovah's Witnesses. And then when she began to question her involvement in the religion, that led to some very serious consequences. So she's going to share her story now. Andi Musacchia, so thanks so much for joining Seeds of Awakening. Thanks for making some time.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad we were able to make this work.
Yes, indeed. So let's just get right into it. Where are you from and how are you raised?
I am from Walburg, North Carolina, and I was raised as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. I was raised by my mom and my dad, and um, it was a it was just a normal upbringing as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Not celebrating the holidays and um, going to meetings every single week, out in service every week, in that type of religious structure. So
Your brothers and
yeah.
sisters?
I do. I have two older sisters, so
You're the youngest.
I am. We're
Very
all
good.
about three years apart or so.
Okay. So what was life like for you growing up? Was it just regular going out and field service, going to meetings, that sort of thing?
Um, I feel like I had a pretty good upbringing as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Um, I had really bad social anxiety though, so it started at a really young age. I remember being really little and being really happy to see everyone at the Kingdom Hall when I was like 4 or 5. I'd go around and say hi to everyone, and then something just kind of switched like a flip at one point, though, and I started just hiding behind my mom's skirt every time I was in the Kingdom Hall. I had sometimes where I would cry out in service, so it was a little bit difficult socially because I was struggling with mental health challenges I didn't know about. Feeling the pressure to always have to talk to people was a lot for me as a kid.
So was field service a challenge then and that sort of thing?
What's that? I'm sorry.
Did field service end up being a challenge for you?
Field service was very much a challenge for me, especially trying to return back to people in field service. I was always so scared to do return visits. Just
Mhm.
terrifying for me.
So what was school like in middle school and the high school years like for you?
So I was homeschooled, actually.
Oh,
I
okay.
did forget to mention that. So I only went to public school for kindergarten and just a little bit of first grade. Other than that, I was homeschooled, and it was an all Jehovah's Witness homeschool group. So I really didn't have any contact with pretty much anyone outside of that.
My mom tried to homeschool us, but it only lasted like a few months because like we were too restless and yeah.
Yeah.
So what was homeschooling like then for you? What was that experience like?
For homeschooling, considering I had social anxiety, I felt like it was a good thing at the time, but it was very isolating. I didn't
Hmm.
grow up with many friends, even within Jehovah's Witnesses. Um, and my the parenting style and teaching style, I guess, of my mom was very uninvolved. So a lot of it felt like I was just my own teacher all the time. I was just basically giving myself my education based on what kind of materials they gave me, which is a lot for a kid.
Kind of self-taught. You felt like you were
Yeah,
self-taught.
pretty much. I feel like I was self-taught, but I also feel like I missed out on learning a lot and ended up, once I got older, retroactively teaching myself the things that most people get taught as they're
Mhm.
growing up in school.
Yeah, so did you get homeschooled through high school too? Is it like all your years of basic education?
All my years of basic education. I went to 2 semesters at a community college for graphic arts,
Mhm.
but actually ended up dropping out of that.
Okay, so after you graduated from high school, you went to community college, and then what happened to you religiously?
So in community college, around that time, I was actually dealing with religious OCD. Um,
What does that
when I
mean?
was around, what's that?
What's religious OCD?
So religious OCD is having OCD that is focused around a religious topic. So for some people, if you're growing up Christian, it might be this obsessive fear of doing something wrong and being sent to hell or something. For me, I actually had a really intense fear around the subject of the 144,000 teaching and the anointed teaching. Um, I remember when I learned about that, I had like a panic attack in the Kingdom Hall, which I'd never thought that that would be something that would make me anxious, but I since then have sort of figured out why that happened, but I was dealing with that religious OCD, this fear of being part of the anointed for a few years. So when I was in community college, I went at a young age. I actually went when I was 16. Um, I was so afraid that I couldn't participate in personal study or Bible reading because it would give me a panic attack. I actually, I was always dissociating mentally at meetings or in field service because if I tried to focus in on what was actually going on around me, something would trigger that fear and I would have a panic attack. So when I was in community college, I was dealing with that, and it got to the point where I still fully believed everything that the Jehovah's Witnesses were teaching, but I just didn't think that I could be a witness anymore. And I was so afraid, in fact, I thought I was going to leave and condemn myself to death, basically. I was more prepared to go be part of the world and feel like I was going to die at Armageddon than to continue dealing with the anxiety that I had as one of Jehovah's Witnesses.
What do you think caused that? Where did that come from?
So since then, and since waking up, I have come to the realization that that fear actually was triggered by the fact that it was a false teaching, and subconsciously I knew that, but consciously I didn't. And that mismatch caused something in me on a very deep level to not be able to cope with that false information that I was hearing, even though I didn't know it was false at the time.
Mm, that's interesting. Yeah, so for me, it was like the beard policy, like when the brothers were like, you can't have the beards. I was like, well, that's not scriptural. And then some of the
Yeah,
other things, like the false prophecies of 1975 and their end of the world prophecies, I was like, well,
right,
the Bible says no one knows the end of the time. So does the governing body really know? That's kind of what
right.
caused that for me. So was there any sort of I guess teachings that you didn't agree with at the time? You said you sort of believed in it.
Yes. So at that point, I did fully believe everything, but a little later on, after I'd learned to cope more with my anxiety, and I was going to stay one of Jehovah's Witnesses. I definitely didn't agree with the not being able to wear pants.
Mhm.
I actually felt like it made us look like a cult if I went out in service with with a skirt on. It made me uncomfortable to do that because I felt like it made us look like that. Um, but what actually really made me start questioning was um, a sort of a combination of two different things. I felt like the love that is claimed to be solely in the organization was not what I was experiencing. I could I couldn't feel that love. I was going through a lot of health issues, and I think it was like almost 2 years in a new congregation, newly married, going through health struggles and PTSD, and I don't think a single person reached out to me.
Mhm.
Um, and then I started reading my Bible, and in Ephesians chapter 4, where it talks about unity and love, the oneness of the Spirit. And I started realizing that unity that is spoken of in the Bible and the love that's spoken of in the Bible is not the same type of love that they talk about in the organization. It's it's actually separateness that they preach, and it's isolationism, is being isolationist that they teach. I realized how much love there is in many different places in the world, and that it's not exclusive to one set of people. Unity should be extended to anyone and everyone, not just people in one religion and organization. And what they were teaching was the opposite of that to me. So that's what really got me.
So sort of the beginning of your waking up.
Yeah, that was the beginning of it. Yes. And I also was seeing some YouTube videos recommended to me about religion and history. I've always been so interested in researching anything that catches my interest, mainly psychology.
Mhm.
Um, but I was getting interested in religion and history, but finding myself hesitating to click on certain videos if it looked like it might challenge what I thought I knew about it. So at that point, I had to make a decision whether or not I was really going to start questioning this or not. And I decided I wanted to follow the real truth no matter where it took me. It had to be a decision like that, though. I couldn't really start figuring out how I felt until I made that decision.
So where's your research take you?
My research took me initially to a YouTube channel called Esoterica, and I watched a video of theirs about the history of the um, the history of Yahweh and how it sort of mirrors and mimics a Canaanite god from
Hmm.
that time as well, a storm deity. And I started researching the idea that at that point there was more of a pantheon that was considered than just a monotheistic religion. And I started researching Sumerian texts
Mm.
about Inannu, um, and how they it mirrors and parallels the story of Eve. And so I just I started reading my Bible constantly. I was hyper fixated on it, and I just kept seeing how there's the same basic things in all these different religions from history that all sort of end up connecting together.
Hmm. Yeah, it's like when you look at all the different religions, they kind of have similar threads. But religion really frames it
Exactly.
is they're different. They don't believe in what we believe in. So this is the right religion. It's kind of interesting the way that dynamic.
Exactly. And I just didn't think that we could say we just know this is the ultimate truth when there's so many, really so many questions out there still. I think one of the important conclusions I came to is that some things are just a mystery, And honoring and respecting that there is mystery in the universe opens you up to realizing so many different profound things.
Hmm. So how did you balance this versus unusual witnesses are very insulated. They don't really believe in looking at outside research. It's all Watchtower awake. How are you feeling about things back then? Like, were you just on a quest for knowledge?
I was on a quest for knowledge, and the only person that I thought of initially was my husband. Because I didn't have friends at that point. I had been going through so much and no one was reaching out to me. I didn't feel like I had too much to lose. I had, I did have my family and my husband, but my family had never been the closest to me. Um, so my main concern was my husband. I
Was
didn't,
he a
I
witness?
didn't, he is, well, he was, yeah, he left as well.
Okay. So
Yeah.
what was he thinking as you were kind of going on this knowledge quest? Was he for it or was he kind of opposing or like, what are you doing?
I did not tell him at first. And he was actually on his own quest for knowledge, but he was researching like UFOs and aliens and stuff around the same time that I was researching religion.
My kind of people.
Yeah.
So what happens after this?
So after this, um, I was asking a lot of questions, not just about religion, but about just the nature of life. And I came across the concept of a collective consciousness, and it immediately resonated with me. And I felt like it was important, but I didn't know why. And as I was reading the Bible, along with having that thought in mind, I started seeing little pieces of that in the Bible, what's been preserved of that. And it just got more and more clear to me that I hadn't been in the truth. I had just been in a religion. Um, we were moving at that point as well, and things were a little bit hectic. But with upheaval comes clarity, and I just ended up coming to that conclusion. It was the beginning of this year. It was around January.
Oh, so it's kind of recent.
Yes.
So explain this concept of collective consciousness if you could.
So actually it was my husband that brought it up to me. And when I first heard the term collective consciousness, I didn't even know what it meant, but I still felt like there was some kind of resonance there with me. But collective consciousness, it's just the idea that all of us are part of this, made of the same thing, basically, made of consciousness, and all of us share this material with the universe as well. It's basically everything being consciousness and being connected and everything being interwoven. It is, in my eyes, true unity, when we can recognize that we are all the same and part of the same source, basically.
How did this were you kind of like feeling a opposition to what Joe's Witnesses were teaching at this point? Did you know you had to leave the organization or that you're on like a different path?
I did know at that point, and I
Okay.
knew I knew it was going to get to the point where I was going to have to leave because I was already like I couldn't stand going to meetings anymore. I didn't want to go in the ministry anymore because it just contradicted too much what I it's like once you know something you can't unknow it.
Mm-hmm.
And once I could hear the way things were being presented in a way that was supposed to make me feel a certain way that I didn't feel. It felt like they were trying to tell me how I felt about things, and I didn't like that. I knew I'd have to talk to my husband very soon, and that scared me a lot.
So what was that conversation like?
the it was two conversations. So the first conversation, I had just been doing all this research, and I thought I want to just present this as logically as possible. Um, and my husband is amazing. He didn't agree with me in that conversation, and he was scared by it, but he was very understanding of why I was questioning things, but it made him feel like he needed to do better as a spiritual and family head.
But
So he started,
it seems like he was
I'm
questioning
sorry.
things too, though. He was like interested in aliens, that kind of more sciencey kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
So I would say that my husband was a Jehovah's Witness apologist, pretty
mm,
much. And he had been the entire time I knew him. So he didn't quite believe things how they were presented, but he also did believe at the same time that it was an inspired organization.
gotcha.
But he was definitely questioning things, but not questioning being part of the organization itself.
Okay. So, what was the
Um,
second conversation like with you guys?
the second conversation, and this was later in March, but the second conversation was similar to the first one, but it's actually what happened afterwards that changed things. The first conversation, he still um, didn't wasn't on the same page with me, but afterwards, we both came across um, reading material about collective consciousness and about um, what's called the law of one.
Hmm.
Um,
The raw material.
exactly, yes, the raw material. We both read just a little bit of that, and as soon as we started reading it, he immediately understood what I had been saying and saw what I was seeing, and we actually had a about 3 hours of pure clarity that day. It felt like 3 weeks, to be honest, but
Mm.
3 hours we were just going through discovery after discovery of things that contradicted with the Jehovah's Witnesses teachings. And after that day, we were both very much on the same page, very much knew that there was going to be a point in the near future that we were going to be leaving.
So, what did that look like for you and your husband?
Well, we were actually struggling a lot financially at that time, and we were living in a camper in my parents' backyard. So our our thought was, let's keep up appearances until we can get a place of our own again, and then we'll leave. What ended up happening, unfortunately, is um, we got found out basically before that could happen.
Why?
So,
Who told?
what's that?
Who told?
Who told? Well, it was, I'm not even gonna lie, I have a hard time remembering exactly what happened because everything moved so fast.
Mm.
But somehow it was something that I think it was something I had said in passing that just I didn't even realize would be a quote unquote red flag. And so my parents started asking questions and
Mm.
ended up finding out that we had basically stopped believing what I'd been taught my whole life.
So, obviously, that probably caused some conflict. What happened after that?
Um, so my parents were obviously not happy, but they did not want us to officially leave. And they
Gotcha.
asked us to give it some thought, give it some time, and and see if we could just be inactive. And we were seriously considering that as well, but unfortunately, we did actually meet with the elders in our congregation and explained that we were not like opposed to Jehovah's Witnesses, but that we were just exploring questions and um, having doubts, basically. at the time I had some really close friends that were not, it's like I said, I didn't have friends, but there was just a couple people in the congregation that I cared very deeply about, and I wanted to not just disappear on them, basically.
Mhm.
So I wrote them letters just telling them how much they meant to me, telling them how much I love them, and telling them that I was going to be leaving, but that I wasn't going to tell them anything they didn't want to hear because I respect them. Because with Jehovah's Witnesses, not welcome, not having a not being welcome to hear other perspectives or perspectives from people that are leaving. I wanted to make sure they knew that I absolutely respected their beliefs still and respected them as people. And I wasn't going to just start trying to tell them all these things they didn't want to hear.
Right.
But they actually gave those letters to the elders. And after that, we got removed without a judicial committee or a committee of elders.
Really?
Yes.
So how'd that feel like to be, there was no formal hearing or they didn't invite you to come sit down and talk to them? You guys they just disfellowshipped you basically?
So they did invite us, but we were moving again. And my husband was starting a new job 2 hours away. So um, we did not accept their initial invitation for a committee, and we were living 2 hours away. And one of the elders actually drove and walked into my husband's new job to tell him that we were being removed.
Really? They
Yes.
went out of their way.
2 hours out of their way, yeah.
Wow. Okay. How'd that
And
make you
and they
feel?
they didn't, what's that?
How'd that make you feel?
It made me feel very disturbed, really. Um, we hadn't told them where he was working or where we were living. Or I think we mentioned the city, but we didn't tell them where we were living or where he was working. So for an elder to drop in unannounced at his new job while he was working was very jarring. He
Hmm.
actually had to leave work because of the emotional turmoil that it caused and come home and tell me about it. And it also disturbed me because I don't know what we were officially removed for.
Right.
Um, and if it has to do with the letters, I find it very disturbing that all it took was personal letters that were shared with the elder body that they were not supposed to even
They weren't for them,
need to see.
basically. Right.
It wasn't for them, and all it was an expression of love. I didn't say anything about the organization. I didn't say anything about the teachings. So for that to trigger that extreme of a response really disturbed me.
Did you guys have any follow-up conversations or was there any sort of exchange after that?
Um, I got a really angry text message from my former best friend's mom. Um, I think that she's was of the opinion that I had always been false and that I
Oh.
never believed, which isn't the case.
Hmm.
And so, but I just told her, I'm sorry you're hurting. I just couldn't continue in a faith I don't believe in anymore.
So when did this happen? How recently was this?
This was, I think it was in August, so just a couple months ago.
Wow, this is really fresh.
Yeah, it is.
So how are you feeling now? Where are you and your husband now?
We are we're doing very well now. It's definitely new layers to process continuously. You think you're past processing something and then something new comes up that you really didn't see coming. So I'm still processing the loss because I did lose friends and family from that. And even if I didn't, I feel like I didn't have as much to lose as many others, but it's still a lot to process. So we're doing very well. honestly better than we have been in a few years because we had a lot of stress going on. And it feels like a huge weight and burden has been lifted. So while there's a lot to process and grieve, at the same time, we feel like life has really opened up to us and we're having a lot of blessings and joy in this new discovery of life.
So you went to a couple of semesters at community college. What did you do for a career?
So I have struggled with my career for most of my life because of my social anxiety that I have dealt with. I've never really had a career, but I make jewelry that I sell online, and I'm currently in search of a job, so I don't have anything going on right now.
So Jehovah's Witnesses recently changed their policy, like they say that college is okay now. How does that rest with you knowing that you kind of found it, went to homeschooling for all those years?
Yeah, it's a little frustrating. I wanted really badly to do more schooling, and I was discouraged from doing that. Um, I'm actually the only one of the only ones in my family, including extended family, who has even done any amount of community college. I dropped out due to mental health struggles, but afterwards I wanted to go back at some point and I was discouraged even from doing that. So I try not to think about what life could be like if things were different in the past because I don't think I gain much from that, but it is a little bit frustrating.
Gotcha. And what does your husband do for work? What was his situation?
He was able to go to school for computer information and he has done IT work in the past,
It's a good field.
but yeah, but he mainly does actually restaurant work. So he's a server right now. He
Okay.
does server and prep work at a local restaurant.
And you guys, how was your, I assume that you moved away, so you don't live with your parents anymore in their backyard in the trailer.
Right. Yeah, we moved 2 hours away in the mountains. We actually live in a very lovely community that has a lot of spiritual people in it that we've been able to connect with people already, which I also feel very fortunate about because I know that's not the case for many who leave. Many have a hard time finding a community. Um, but we we live in the mountains and we love it here.
So what are your beliefs now spiritually? I know you sort of read the Law of One and you're kind of on this more collective conscious tip. What are your beliefs now?
Right. My beliefs now are ever in flux because there's just always more to learn. But I do
Mhm.
believe in the collective consciousness, and I believe that consciousness expansion. I believe that many people, most people, have found themselves in a similar position as myself now, and I'm excited to see what the future holds because I believe that things are bright for the future and I don't believe in any particular religion. I think that throughout history there has been many sources of spiritual guidance that have come to light, such as Jesus, Yeshua, um, and I believe that those all hold value. I believe in. I think I'm a little bit rambly and hard to having a hard time explaining, but ultimately I believe in love and unity. And as far as religion goes, when I look at different religions, whatever they say that's in line with that, I take and hold with value. But anything that speaks to power and control, I believe is a force that came in later and corrupted the spiritual teachings that were being circulated.
I would say that's
That's
very
what I believe.
accurate. Yeah, I believe that's very accurate understanding of what happened. So we're spending a few moments with Andi Musacchia. Hopefully I said the last thing correctly.
You did. You're doing well.
Yeah, so I find it interesting that Jehovah's Witnesses are so set on using Jehovah's name, which may not be the correct pronunciation, but yet they call Jesus Jesus, and his name is Yeshua, which you referred to. So how do you kind of make sense of that?
Um, you know, they're using the Latinized versions, which I don't, you know, to stick by it being the absolute highest truth of the matter, I think is a little silly. But as far as using the name Jehovah, I don't find anything wrong with, but I do prefer personally using Yahweh and Yeshua because of knowing that they're more accurate.
Mhm. So was meditation a part of your awakening as well?
You said meditation?
Hmm.
Meditation, what's interesting is that I accidentally did meditation and it was a part of my awakening because I'm probably familiar. Jehovah's Witnesses do not do meditation because of I think
The
it's something about
superstitions?
yeah
Yes.
superstitions around what it can connect you with, I guess. But for me, I was dealing with chronic back pain that everything I tried, I couldn't find anything that could help. So one day I was just so sick of it, I decided to lay on the ground, just lay flat on my back and do really deep diaphragmal breathing and just
Hmm.
focus on that just to try to relieve the pain. What I didn't know was that what I was doing was meditating
Right.
and and doing breath work.
Yep.
So I lay there on the ground and I my spine just cracked like almost all the way down. It like cracked like 7 or 8 times. And it actually did start giving me some insight after that one brief breath work and meditation that I did just for my back without even realizing it. I started getting very focused on sacred geometry and the collective consciousness, and that was actually toward the beginning of waking up as well. So and
Mhm.
since then I actually have I try to practice meditation daily.
Yeah, I do a lot of breath work every day and
Yeah,
it's very instrumental.
absolutely.
So do you have a relationship with your family now?
The only family that I have a relationship with, besides of course my husband who left with me, is my mom. And it's interesting. It started off, she said that we would only be able to communicate for family business, but I just think she just couldn't do it with her daughter. I'm the only one who has made this decision to leave. And so she continues to talk to me like normal, but I'm not sure if the rest of my family knows.
Mm. On the under,
Yeah, pretty much.
she's sneaking around, breaking the rules.
I think so, yeah.
It's okay.
Which
We
I
won't
love
tell any,
her for.
we won't tell anybody.
Yeah, exactly.
So is your husband also on a more spiritual journey now?
He is. He also is doing the meditation and breath work every day as well, and we are pretty much on the same page with our beliefs. He's been getting very into the manifestation side of things, and I still am mainly focused more on the meditation, but I am interested in manifestation as well.
Hmm.
Um, so it's great having that with him because I know so many people have to leave alone and even lose their partners. So
Exactly. Yep. That's great that you both were able to kind of have this mutually beneficial experience. Well, not beneficial, but mutual
yeah,
understanding that it might not be the truth.
exactly. Very life changing.
Definitely. So how's your life changed? I mean, since you kind of stepped away recently.
Well, since I even before leaving, since I just realized that it wasn't what I consider the truth, I have seen actually improvements in both my physical and mental health. So I had been struggling even when I wanted to and was trying really hard. I struggled to go to meetings and in service because of my health. And just having this sense of guilt from not being able to always go, I actually have gotten off of 4 prescription medications since leaving because my health has improved so much.
Yeah, I've talked to other people who have to medicate. They like take drugs or alcohol to medicate themselves while they're in the truth. And then as soon as they walk away, they like don't have to do that anymore.
Right. Exactly. So I had two different medications for chronic migraines and POTS, and I had medication for ADHD and for PTSD. So I had four different medications that I had been put on, and I've been able to get off of all of them since leaving.
It's great. All right, so yeah, at this point, I have a few questions that I like to ask all my guests, and I'll kind of modify them for our conversation. But
Okay.
what would be your definition of a spiritual awakening?
My definition of a spiritual awakening, that's a good question. My definition of a spiritual awakening would be when someone has a shift in perspective of how reality functions, and particularly in regards to processing love, because when you do experience spiritual awakening, a lot of it, if it's in a positive environment, is about how much love there is in the world, to be honest, and how it really connects everything. So I would define spiritual awakening as having your internal world just up upheaved, how you view reality and how it functions, and yourself as an individual, and humanity as a collective as well.
Mhm. So, what's the most important or valuable lesson have you learned in life so far?
The most important and valuable lesson that I have learned in life is to really go within, to understand yourself, and to understand your own internal cues, because that's what's going to really guide you in life to
Hmm.
what's meant for you. You can tell in your own body and your own spirit what resonates as true and what is meant for you.
Hmm. Great answer. And my last question is,
Thank
what
you.
would be your advice to anyone who's maybe starting to question things, or maybe they're having some spiritual feelings or sensations, or maybe just some questions for how they're living?
My advice would be to pay attention to how things make you feel. If something is making you feel afraid, that is probably a hint that there's something there that you need to look closer at and understand, why is it making you afraid? And if there's something that makes you feel like things are clear and feel love, then that's something worth taking note of as well. But also, I would give the advice to connect with nature, stay grounded, because when you start having these spiritual ideas come to you, it can be easy to get caught up in that and forget that you are a human being here on earth, and that it's really important to stay connected to your roots, and to um, stay calm, take things one step at a time.
Yeah, since you recently left, I've another question. Do you feel like more people are starting to have more waking up experiences within the organization or on a global basis?
I do. I think that within the organization, but on a global basis as well, I have seen a lot of people really embrace spirituality, but embrace just the idea of love and unity more. And I don't think that it looks the same for everyone at all. Some people are immediately drawn to being a spiritual individual. Some people are drawn to a certain religion. Some people can be having a spiritual awakening, but feel like they resonate with atheism even, you know?
Mhm.
So I think that more people are coming to these higher consciousness ideas, but from many different backgrounds and places, so it looks different for a lot of people.
100%. All right, so Andy, someone wants to get in touch with you, maybe have some questions. How would they go about reaching you?
So they could go about reaching me through my email address would be, it's Musacchia@gmail.com if you have any questions or want to reach out. I also am running my own YouTube channel at Realm of Renee. So those would be the two ways to go about finding out more about me.
Andi, thanks so much for spending a few moments. Good luck in your quest to find knowledge in your as you seek to understand life. And thanks so much for spending a few moments with us.
Absolutely. Thank you as well. And good luck to you and everything in your endeavors as well.